Near the centre of England lies a town called Brood, the ancestral home of the Boydens. Parish registers show our Boydens in Brood from at least the early 1600s to 1700s, but they could have been here much longer. Nearby is Chillington Hall, the home of the noble Giffard family. Their ancestor was a knight who helped William the Conqueror claim the English throne. As a reward, William gave Giffard extensive land holdings. His descendants rented some of this land to tenant farmers, including our Boyden ancestors. If you are familiar with Emma by Jane Austen, the Giffards are like Mr. Knightley, and the Boydens are like Robert Martin. They lived here on Park Lane near the fields they were renting. Let's see if any of the houses look like they could have been here in the 16 or 1700s. This house appears to have an older part on the left and an addition on the right. This is the farmland the Boydens worked on. It's amazing that this area has changed so little over the centuries. We could faintly hear the church bells in the distance. The fields are right next to a little road that leads to Chillington Hall. We'll drive there so you can see what it looks like going from the farm to the manor house. Our ancestors probably lived on this estate when Queen Elizabeth I visited in 1575. Every summer, she would travel around and stay at her subjects' country estates, which meant the host had to construct extra ovens and find food, housing, and entertainment for over 300 people and 1,000 horses with only a few days' notice. One estimate of the cost for a 3-day visit from the Queen was $10 million in today's money. However, the political and social benefits could be immense. On the Queen's visit to Staffordshire, the Giffards were not so lucky. When she stayed at their home, the Protestant Queen noticed that the staunch Catholic John Giffard did not attend his local Church of England parish. So after her visit, he was thanked by being charged fines and eventually house arrest because he refused to comply. Later, Queen Elizabeth commanded all Catholic priests to leave the country, and if they did not, they would be executed for treason. The Giffards built a couple of priests' holes into one of their other houses that was 2.5 miles away, called Boscobel House, where priests could hide to escape the Queen. If a family helped hide priests, they risked fines or execution. King Charles II also hid in the priest hole of Boscobel House when he was being pursued by Oliver Cromwell's troops while he was escaping the country. So our ancestors had a front row seat to the English Civil Wars. This view from above shows Chillington Hall as the orange dot in the upper right corner at the end of the straight line of trees. The red circle is around the farmland the Boydens rented, and the yellow dots to the left mark both sides of the loop of Park Lane where they lived. The white road that cuts through the fields is Port Lane. The blue arrow shows the tree-lined road we drove from the fields to Chillington Hall. This is the Church of St. Mary and St. Chad in Brood. Some of our Boydens were baptized here as infants at the font, married, and buried. The church has existed in some form since at least the 1200s, but the church did not start keeping records until 1562. We were surprised to hear the church bells ringing and wondered what the event was. It turns out we'd stumbled upon the Brood bell ringers who practice on Tuesday nights for over an hour. This gentleman showed us that the bells are rung by moving them from their usual upside-down position.
No, you did not. Get it right some of the time.
Shall I stand with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Charles Boyden grew up in Milford, 11 miles from Brood. His father was a house painter. When Charles was in his mid-teens, his parents sent him with his brother John on the train to Betley to become apprentices to their uncle. He was a wheelwright, so they worked constructing and repairing wheels. While in Betley, Charles met Sarah Corns, who was working as a domestic servant, perhaps at an estate like this one that we saw in Betley. They were married in St. Margaret's Church when Charles was 24 and Sarah was 26. Their first son was John, and sometime during his youth he broke his arm. When it was set, it didn't heal properly, so it was broken again and reset a second time. Without proper medical care, his growth plate had been damaged, and he lost the use of his arm. His parents had him trained in academics so that he could be a schoolmaster, since other trades required the use of both arms. John became well-read and was known for his beautiful penmanship. He wrote this quote from Shakespeare's The Tempest when he was only 14 or 15 and a student at Wrigley Academy. When John was 4 years old, the family had moved 100 miles away to Blyton in Lincolnshire, where they thought they would find better work. While there, they had an experience that changed the course of their lives, and ours. Their 1-year-old son William got sick and died. His death may have prompted an intense interest in pursuing faith. What preachers from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints taught rang true for them and gave inspiration for a new religious life. Charles and Sarah were baptized in the River Trent by a 19-year-old missionary from Yorkshire named Joseph Taylor. They decided to move to Manchester because it would be easier to save money to emigrate to Utah and to be closer to church headquarters in Liverpool. Manchester was the first industrialized city in the world, with its enormous mills for processing cotton and textiles. The 1800s brought a huge population surge as many moved there for reliable jobs. Manchester is home to the first football league in the world, formed in 1888, 20 years after our ancestors moved to Utah. Manchester is just 40 minutes away from Lime Park, which you might recognize as Pemberley in the BBC Pride and Prejudice. Jane Hornsby was born in Manchester. Her future husband, William Mitchell, was born in Inveresk, 5 miles east of Edinburgh, Scotland. His mother's and father's families lived about 8 miles from my favorite beach in the Edinburgh area, Gillane Beach. From there, you can look across the Firth of Forth and see land that is not far from St. Andrews, the home of golf, and the long sandy beach for the runners from the opening of Chariots of Fire.
Remember, leave it better than you found it.
As a young man, William moved to the big city of Manchester, where he met and married Jane in St. John's Church in 1833. William worked as a professional artist, and some of his paintings received attention from Queen Victoria when on exhibition in Manchester. His daughter told the story of Queen Victoria visiting the art gallery and attempting to brush a fly from a bowl of fruit her father had painted, the picture being so perfect in detail that the Queen did not know the fly had been painted there. Victoria and Albert were in Manchester in 1857 for the Art Treasures exhibition, so it may have been at this event. Jane was one of the very early converts to the church in England. Parley P. Pratt baptized her in February 1842, 4.5 years after the first missionaries came to England. Her daughter Jessie and other family members were baptized a few years later. They were in the Ashton-under-Lyne branch of the church when the Boyden family moved in. John Boyden met his future wife Jessie Mitchell at church when he was 9 and she was 14. The Boydens moved into 95 Guide Lane in Manchester, and here's what it looks like today. The entire family pitched in to save money to emigrate to Utah. Charles changed his profession to carpenter, the girls worked in a hat factory, and John, in his mid-teens, taught school. Charles was called to be the branch president, and John was called as branch secretary when he was just 16, Jessie emigrated on the same ship as the Boydens. We can only guess if they had ulterior motives emigrating together, but they were married 4 years after arriving in Utah. They settled in Colville to raise their family. Their home grew from a small structure in the 1860s to this Gothic Revival and Victorian-style home, which is still standing at 47 West Center Street in Colville today. They had 6 children, but only 3 lived past infancy. John was known for his willingness to work to improve his community. He was a schoolmaster, tithing office clerk, state legislator, creator of the first library in Colville, mayor for 3 terms, high counselor, and many more. Community involvement became a trademark of Boyden's for several generations, and it's easy to see where they got the inspiration. The blue line follows the path of the Boydens from near Brood to Betley, where John was born, then to Blyton and Manchester. The gold line shows William Mitchell moving from Edinburgh to Manchester, where he met his wife Jane and where Jessie was born. Then both families emigrated to Utah. Wales is part of the west coast of the UK, which receives more annual rainfall than Seattle. The lush green countryside is known for its beautiful daffodils in spring. The early inhabitants of Wales were semi-nomadic herders and farmers who raised cattle and sheep. The most typical foods that sustained them were oats and dairy products, and in the winter months they ate cawl, a stew of meat and root vegetables. But Wales is also rich in natural resources, which led to mining and industrial development. Merthyr Tydfil was rich in iron, coal, timber, and water, making it an ideal place for mining and ironworks. When our ancestors lived there, Merthyr produced the most iron and coal in the world, fueling the Industrial Revolution. The first steam-powered railway journey took place in Merthyr Tydfil, and iron rails produced here helped build railroads around the world, such as from Moscow to Siberia and even in South America. Sarah's parents lived in Merthyr Tydfil. William was sent to work in the coal mines at age 10, and Mary was sent out to do housework, so neither of them had the opportunity to go to school. In spite of this, William learned to read and write, and his family claimed their father knew the Bible from beginning to end and probably learned it almost by heart. He was considered an intelligent man and preached sermons in Wales. Mary never learned to read, but her family said she could not be fooled in mathematics and could work out almost any problem. William and Mary met and were married when they were just 18 years old. They raised their family at number 8 Bridge Street in Merthyr, but of their 11 children, only 5 lived to come with them to America in 1868. Nonconformist Christian congregations grew rapidly in South Wales in the 18th and 19th centuries. By 1851, 80% of church-going people in Merthyr Tydfil were nonconformist, such as Methodists, Baptists, and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which had a large congregation of over 1,000 active members in Merthyr. The Davis family joined the church probably sometime in the mid-1840s and attended the branch in a rented hall at the White Lion Inn under the leadership of Dan Jones. The Davis family remained in Wales when a group of their church friends emigrated to Utah in 1849. This Welsh group sang their way across the plains, lifting the spirits of their fellow travelers. William Morgan wrote that when their group was singing, people put their heads out of the wagons to listen, and then came running to them to hear. Brigham Young asked this little choir and their leader John Perry to form what later came to be known as the Tabernacle Choir and the rich choral heritage of the church. As the Welsh say,
"To be born Welsh is to be born privileged, not with a silver spoon in your mouth, but with music in your blood and poetry in your soul."
The rapidly growing coal and iron industries in America recruited experienced Welsh miners with better pay and working conditions. When Gomer was 21, he immigrated with his family to work in the mines of Pennsylvania. When Sarah was turning 15, she immigrated with her family to Ohio. Her father, William Henry Davis, had crossed the ocean 4 times to work in the United States before settling in Ohio and having his family join him. Gomer and his family also moved to the mines of Ohio, where he met and married Sarah when she was 18. She became the mother of 15 children, but 7 passed away at age 4 or younger. Gomer and Sarah moved to Spanish Fork, Utah with her family before moving on to Colville. In 1896, Gomer was appointed state coal mine inspector under Governor Heber Wells to oversee the safety standards of all Utah's coal mines. The largest challenge of his career by far came in 1900 when he had to investigate the Schofield mine disaster and help rescue the remains of its 200 victims. In his determination to prevent future incidents, Gomer corresponded with chemists in New York City and Pennsylvania to replace the volatile powder used in the mines with a new, safer, smokeless variety. A historian noted that Gomer campaigned tirelessly for improved conditions in Utah's coal mines. He petitioned the legislature to enact a law that miners must evacuate the mine before setting off an explosion, but this did not pass until another incident years later after Gomer's death. His obituary claimed that his health had sharply declined after his role as a rescuer at the mine disaster, likely due to the inhalation of dangerous particulates in the air. The Welsh communities in Utah held Eisteddfods, which are cultural festivals of Welsh music and poetry. In Spanish Fork, the Davis' son William Jr. directed a women's quartet that won first place. He is probably this person circled in this photo of the first choir in Spanish Fork.
Hello, Eliza. Welcome to Merthyr Tydfil. Hello, Eliza's family, and especially Eliza's mum. So this is Merthyr Tydfil. Merthyr Tydfil's been here for hundreds of years. Merthyr meaning martyr, and Tydfil was apparently a chieftain of the area many hundreds of years ago. Tydfil was his daughter, who was captured and killed, martyred towards the bottom end of Merthyr. Hence the name Merthyr Tydfil or Martyr Tydfil. She was a Christian, and that's why she was killed. Merthyr blossomed in the late 18th, early 19th century to become the huge town that it was at the time. At one time it was the biggest producer of iron and steel in the world. Bridge Street is now Avenue de Clichy because we're twinned with a town in France called Clichy. Bridge Street would probably have been like many of the areas around here where small houses in terraces were closely packed together, and that's where the people that worked in the coal mines and the iron and steel works used to live. Lots of people here were prone to disease, especially cholera, and lots of them died in different places. Merthyr's a great place to live, and we're very friendly.